Boa tarde a todos e a todas. I will speak in English, I just forgot. Good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to this session. Global challenges faced by humanity now call for a new set of leadership skills, which we are calling leadership for transformation. There are already knowledge and technologies in place, such as clean energies, regenerative agriculture, new economies, and several social technologies to face these challenges. But the question is, will there be leaders, transformative leaders, in time to lead the way? My name is Telma Gomes. I'm the co-founder of Seeds for Sustainability, an organization that is focused on building bridges and working with projects to promote holistic and systemic change behavior. I have the pleasure and the honor to moderate this conversation with our exceptional guest speakers, which I will introduce you now. Lala Deheinzelin, one of the leading futurists in Latin America, pioneer of the creative and collaborative economies, has worked worldwide as an advisor and solutions designer in all sectors of society: cultural, creative, corporations, local and national governments, United Nations. Her experience was systemized in a method plus a set of tools called Fluxonomia 4D. She is now training leaders and entrepreneurs and applying those methods in the redesign of programs and products in large institutions, as well as collective and networks. She is the creator of Creative Futures Movement, author of the book Desirable New World, and the New Economies Fostering Desirable Futures. Philippine Linn has been a professional coach, trainer, and facilitator, hosting workshops for developing coaches and participatory leadership skills all over the world. She is the co-founder of Diamond Leadership Academy, aimed at developing leadership capacity, and currently hosts the Leading from Love programs to midwife a new phase in organizations and institutions. Her purpose is to facilitate spaces where people can explore leading their lives from a place of love, so that they can find the courage to seek what they are longing for in their lives and create systems and structures in the world collectively. Edgard Gouveia never gets tired of putting people to play. Architect and urbanist, postgraduated in cooperative games, he dedicates his life mobilizing youth and adults by designing and applying virtual games and collective actions that lead to small community revolutions. He has a robust track record as a speaker and change agent, being recognized by reputable organizations like Ashoka, Berkana Exchange, and Trip Transformers. CEO and founder of Epic Journey, a company that promotes the regeneration of communities in companies, schools, and NGOs. He is the co-founder of Live Lab, developing youth leading regeneration in their own communities. Here highlighted X Journey and X Spring Games. Mary Alice Arthur joins story activism with a leading-edge skill in using participatory practice to help groups become high-performing communities, able to step up, co-create a compelling story, and from it, wise, sustained action. She works around the world with leaders in all levels of public and private organizations and communities. As an international steward of the Art of Hosting Network, she teaches story activism skills and participatory practice and hosts participatory gatherings all over the globe. She is now dedicated to launching her book, 365 Live, Find Your Voice, Claim Your Story, Start Living Your Brilliant Life, to be launched in November. Now I want to welcome our guest speakers to the screen so that we can start having our conversation. Let's wait until they come to the room virtually. Welcome, Mary Alice.
Hello.
Are we going to? Okay, so we start with you, Mary Alice. I want to welcome you and thank you so much for being with us, sharing your wisdom, your stories, your power, personal power. I'm a big fan of all the guest speakers we have. And I want to sparkle our conversation asking you, how does a leader become a story activist? How can leaders take advantage of the power of stories?
Thank you for asking. So first of all, let's talk about what is a story activist. So this is a combination of two things. First of all, understanding what the power of story is. So we think right at the moment that we're in a time of conflicting ideas, but actually we are living in a time of the clash of stories. So I lived in New Zealand for almost 30 years. Right at the moment, I'm back in the States after 35 years or more away. But at the tip of New Zealand, there's Cape Ranga. And right at this point in the tip of the North Island is where the Tasman and the Pacific Ocean meet, the Tasman Sea and the Pacific Ocean. And there's actually a ridge in the water. You can see where the force of these two bodies of water meet. And that's exactly the time we're living in when you think about stories. We're living in a clash of stories. So we're living in a time of fundamental change. It makes big sense to become very aware of how stories work. So we think we're powered by ideas. We think we control the world by facts and logic and all that kind of stuff. But actually, it's our stories that are in charge, because our stories create how we see, sense, and understand the world. And they also determine what kind of agency we think we have, whether we think we can do something or whether we think we can't, whether we think we're powerful or powerless, whether we think we belong to something or we're separate from something. It all depends on our stories and how we see things. So right at the moment, it's also a good time to think about what activism means. So we've had a lot of people who are climate activists, but I want to claim this word activism as the word activate. So what kind of stories do we choose to activate? What are we actually paying attention to? So when we realize the power of stories and we put that together with what we choose to activate and what we choose to work on and put these two things together, we have story activism. So that's the basis of the work I do. So right at the moment, people are attempting to return to normal, whatever that means. One of my favorite t-shirts ever said on the front of it, "Normal is a cycle on the washing machine." So I always wonder what normal is. But here's the interesting thing, that people are trying to return to normal. And that means that there's a lot of fear around of, will we ever come back to where we were? What's going to happen next and what will happen to me? So fear works in an interesting way in the brain. It goes to the reptilian part of the brain. And that means that stories become much more black and white. There's a lot less shades of gray when you are dealing with a lot of fear. It's also really easy to become polarized, and we're seeing that in our world, but especially in the nation I'm sitting in. It's very easy to get polarized around things because of fear. And when you feel out of control, usually you try to put things into control. You try to get a little bit of a handle on how things work. So these are the forces that are operating in the moment of the planet, and it's good for leaders to know about that. So back in 2015, lots of people were coming to Europe as the wave of refugees came out of Syria. I did a little project called People on the Move at the time, and I remember very well hearing from a Greek storyteller what the Greeks have learned in the financial crisis. And she said, what we have learned is when you have no fundament, in other words, when you don't know how to really live and deal with the land you are on. So she said, when you have no fundament, we've learned that you become fundamentalistic. And this is something that's resonated in my mind again and again as I'm thinking about this time on the earth. So what can a leader do? Two things. Be aware of stories and being a storyteller. Number two, use the power of questions. These two things ride together. So let me address first the power of questions. Excellent book on this subject for leaders is Peter Bloch's book, The Answer to How is Yes, because he talks about how we stop innovation and creativity by asking, how is that done? How many people did that? What does it cost? We shut down the mode of thinking when we use small questions, when we use transactional questions, what I would call the what's for dinner question, instead of transformational questions. So learning to hold the space for a bigger question is a key component to being a great leader in these times. And think about the power of words within your questions. So that question, how can we be the best in the world? If you change one little word, how could we be the best for the world? You fundamentally ask a much bigger and much more transformational question. Big questions take us to the power of stories, and big questions help people take on their own responsibility rather than living in learned helplessness. So that question, what's working around here, could be the most powerful thing you could ask to anybody you're working with. So what stories are you deciding to activate, and who and what can you uplift? These are important questions for this point in time. What are the stories of possibility? What are the stories of transformation? What stories are you regularly sharing because people are looking to you as a leader, as a change maker, in order to tell them where we're going and how it might be possible to get there? That's why stories are fantastic, because stories work in the head and the heart, and they make the hands do something. We need emotion to move anywhere, and that's why stories are important. So here's the interesting thing. You need to go first. If you want people to share their stories, then start sharing one of yours. Telling people you don't know the answer, telling people you're also concerned, is one way for them to let go of that concern and that challenge that they know they also have. So this is the time and place for true leadership. And I think about Dee Hock's work around the chaotic path, that is, the dance between chaos and order. This time in the world where we need to have one little toe in order and another toe in chaos and learn how to do the dance, learning how to do the tango is a good thing right at the moment. And that's where true leadership lies. Knowing where you want to go and being prepared to be innovative and unfolding in emerging space while you do it. And the way you do that is to make sure you're asking powerful questions, you're demonstrating good leadership, and you're telling the stories that help people know that the future is possible. Thank you so much for listening. Please become a story activist.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Mary Alice. I want to invite our next guest speaker to the screen. Lala. Now we have Lala Deheinzelin. So happy to have you here. One of my female models. Lala, I want to ask you, as a futurist, how do you see leadership transforming? What are the lenses, how those lenses support this new leadership to come?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you in this gathering, because actually the whole axis of my thought is about gathering. So I think there are 6 things I would like to point to leaders. First thing is related to narratives. Nice to hear what Mary told us before, because as what we see as futurists is that we kind of seed the future with the images and the narratives that we have. So it's in a way the dreams of the past kind of seed the future. So it's very important that we become responsible for what kind of seeds are we spreading. And also, we must absolutely be prepared to think about the future, because we are future illiterate. We only think about the past, we study the past, and we study very little the future. So first thing, futures literacy, and spread positive visions of the future. This is very important. What kind of thing are we seeing? Second thing would be the awareness of what's going on. Why are we in such a crisis? Actually, it's not a crisis, it's a transition. We perceive transitions as crises because things change. And this transition is I think, the biggest transition in the story of mankind, because of humanity, because we are changing dimension. The network is beyond time and space, and this put us as if we were in another dimension. This dimension is exponential, this word that is now very present in our daily life, and a word that we can't handle. We can't handle the amount of information. We can handle everything that is exponential, because we are linear. We, time, our body, the planet, are linear. So we have a linear ability to respond to exponential challenges. And then we really have a problem. But every problem has a solution. And the solution, which is the third point, is exactly the theme of this gathering, which is the only way to handle exponentiality is by combining two things. One is technology. In the crisis of 2008, we saw the birth of all the giants of technology, because this technology was able to converge and together data, markets, and so on. And now, this crisis, 2020, we will see the birth of the collaborative giants. The ones that combine technology, of course, because we need tools, but all the institutions, enterprises, groups, whatever, that are able to have both hands, the hand of technology and the hand of collaboration. But the thing, and this is the third point, is that collaboration is not intention. Intention is what attracts us. But then we need to do stuff. And collaborate is very, very, very complicated. It's a technology that is very sophisticated. And usually we think that just our good intention is enough. And then we gather, and then nothing happens. And then collaborating doesn't work. So we need methods. And fourth step, this collaboration depends on trust. And trust can't exist in a field where there is a lot of polarization, as we see now. And this year, I met the work of a historian, very interesting, Niall Ferguson, and he uses two expressions that I find very interesting. He uses the expression to describe history. He says through history we had two kind of organizational ways of doing things. One is the tower. The tower is centralized. It's like the governments or the big corporations or the financial system. It's centralized, is efficient, but it's unstable, and it generates a lot of crises, such as the one we are going through. On the other hand, we have the square. The square is distributed, is people doing together, is gathering, through history we saw waves of change between the power in the tower, the power in the square, tower, square, but never before we had combination, design combination of tower and square. And now it's the moment that we do so, that we understand. I'm an activist of collaboration for the last 20, 30 years. And I see that if we don't have a tower, if we don't have methods, centralization of that data, technology, so on, only the relationship and the caring, that won't be enough. So we need both. We need the tower and the square. And also we need tower and square in another aspect. This is my fifth advice, which is economy. We see just half of the cake of the economy because we can only measure what is in the GDP, and this is just half of the cake because all the contributive economy, or the love economy as Hazel Henderson calls it, or the regenerative economy, or the economy that the earth do, this is not measured, is not perceived. So we need, as an engine to work needs two wheels or a bike, we need to work with two economies. One is the conventional financial system, which is very unstable, and this is the economy of the tower. And the other one is the economy of the square, which is the flow of assets. We call in Fluxonomy, we deal with that. We call assets in four dimensions: cultural, environmental, social, and financial, not only currency, but for instance, time. And although the national currencies can have ups and downs, our assets, for instance, or the knowledge I have, or my abilities, this is not unstable. This is all the time there, and I can share it if I have the means, if I have the technology. So I think we will see in this, we are already seeing this, more and more new currencies, new ways of flowing different assets. And we must be able to account different values, not only what is money and current currencies. And finally, in order to achieve all this, we need methods, because collaboration is not something intuitive. In the contrary, because social cultural technologies are much, much more complicated than the hard technologies. The high touch is more sophisticated than the high tech, but we don't see that. And my work is in this field. I'm working in the design of tools and methods and lenses and processes that can help us make a path from communities of intention, because usually people think that because they are together around a common intention, which is always the beginning, is the way we start things, but it's not the ending point. We need this in the start, but then we need tools and methods. We need a little bit of tower in the square so that we can become collaborative ecosystems of action. Because what we see now is that we absolutely need to work together. This transition is because life itself goes in the direction of collaboration. We can see this when we understand that atoms becomes molecules, and then cells, and then tissues, organs, and so on, as well as in society. So we don't have any option. We are evolving, and evolution is in the direction of gathering. And in order to be able to gather and to converge, we need to be prepared. We can't be naive. So my contribution is the design of tools and methods for this, to help communities become collaborative ecosystems. I hope I could give a brief vision of what can be done. And thank you so much. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Lala. Thank you so much. So we'll have our next guest on the screen. Still some seconds for us to do the transition. Yay, Philippine. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And please spread leading from love. I want to ask you, this is the time when old ways of working are being really challenged. Why is it important to let everything go and choose another mindset?
Thank you, Telma. Thank you for asking that question and for the invitation to be at this beautiful conference. I believe that we are really at a shift in our history. And the shift for me is that our ways of working aren't working any longer. My Sir David Attenborough yesterday night, he also alludes to the fact that if we like this, like our usual.
Seems we are having connection problems. Did we lose Philippine? Yes, we did. Can we switch to Edgard while we recover the connection with Philippine? So that technology does not eat our time? Edgard, my dear friend Edgard, thank you for being with us and bringing your joy, and please play with us. How can leaders awaken, Edgard, the superpower of people wanting to do something for themselves? How can play and gamification support this?
Okay. Hi, Telma. Thanks so much for inviting me for this call. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Like, so inspiring listening Mary Alice and Lala at first. It's easy to join the subjects. So how can leaders inspire their communities? So I would say, like, on top of Mary Alice's comment, I would say leaders can re-enchant the stories. I think it would be that, like, according to Mary Alice, and I totally agree, if we are in a moment of clash of narratives, for example, we have the narrative, we are following the narrative of the enemy, that the other being a potential enemy, more than a potential friend, possibility of connection. The narrative of the leader, beyond the other, beyond communities, on top of communities. So the winner, say, like the narrative of the winner, one of us has to win, and not the whole, as a whole community. We are in the narrative of the boundaries. Like, I'm here, I'm Brazilian, and the other one is Argentinian. So one imaginable line which don't exist can create this narrative that the other one's a potential risk. So how, in a moment of this despair, of fear, according to the explanation of Mary Alice, that we are kind of thinking with our reptile cerebral, so how can leaders re-enchant the stories or the path of their communities? How can we tell a story that brings us out of the fear and out of the space of, because of being threatening, I have to control or I have to be aggressive, how to bring us to a place where we can naturally be more creative, more collaborative, more joyful, more entrepreneurs. So like in the fields of play, or excitement, we all are naturally collaborative. We are naturally creative. We are naturally entrepreneurs. We want to be challenged. In the fields of play, we want to be challenged. Anyone, not just the winners. So some of us that were winners all the time, so we love risk possibilities because that excites us. But many of us, or most of us, we don't like this risk possibility because we know if we are used to lose, we know that we are left behind. So we don't want to take the risks. Right? But now is a moment that you have to be creative. Now is a moment that you have to take risks. But we don't need to do it by ourselves. So I would say the first thing that I would love from a leader of my community would that he or she would be able to inspire me, to excite me, to bring joy out of me and my community, and my friends and my peers, to face the challenges in a joyful way and succeed. So I would say that the most powerful thing from a leader right now is the power of storytelling, or telling a story that will change our paths, will change our reality. We are all, most of us in the world, because of COVID and the other stuff, all the other stuff that you have, the climate change or disasters, we are all telling and sharing stories of fear, terrible stories. But in this place of fear, we don't move. We are not the best version of ourselves. So I would love to have leaders that would be able to tell stories the same way that Italian movie, remember, Life is Beautiful, Benini, the same was that quality that this guy, this father, was able to share, to tell his kids a different story in front of the war situation, in a way that the kids were able to experience a different reality. Even being in the Holocaust camps, his kids were able, his wife were able to live a different reality, to perceive a different reality, so acting in a different way. So that is the kind of leader that I would like to in my fields. So how can play and games help to that? Because, so you don't need to, when I think about how can I invent a story or change this story right here, right now, and training people and shifting culture, it's kind of tough. Right? So like, how in the hell are we going to do that, right? But you don't need to shift a whole culture of that. That's the good news for me. We human beings naturally, doesn't matter, despite of centuries of not that good stories of the winner, of story of the enemy, story of the bounders, a nation bounders, the story of, all the stories have a strong story that means connection, friendship, I say evolution, in a sense, that quote from Rumi, which I love, like right there, beyond the notions of wrongdoing, there is a field. Somehow I'd say like the whole humanity, each one of us, we look for that kind of field. There's a place that we all can feel, that we all have this little sense, like Charles Eisenstein is always saying, like there is a most beautiful world that we all know that exists close to us, that would love to be there. Like, if there is this world, I would love to be there. It's kind of planted and seeded in all our souls. How can that? So for me, all the living natures and other beings in nature, visible or not visible, we all innate to be happy. We kind of, our hearts know those places, and we are kind of eager, seeking for, hoping for. So the good news for me is that in the fields of play, we are that being already. Go back to yourself in situations, not just kids play, But if you want to see in fields of play, fields of adventure, fields of excitement, the fields of epics. So all human beings are connected with that, that situation. And we all somehow have experienced clips of moment in our that thing happen around the fire with people that you never saw, but you could sense that kind of harmony. People from so many different places feel like friendship or brotherhood, brother or sisterhood, right? So that moment or that party or that trip or that moment that we all, the whole community came together to build something or to support someone, like those moments that you can feel like, oh, that's what it's about, right? So the good news for leaders that if you don't know how to tell is invite people to this, invite people to play. So like I say, I bet able in this whole lake to pollute this whole lake in just how to bring this community. So let's not wait for our government. Let's not wait for the money. Let's not wait for people to have this narrative. What if we have a community? So they can go back to our grandparents or grandparents of our indigenous community. They quotes that we are all looking for now. For example, this famous quotes of African community, the whole village to raise a child. It's not about school. It's not about parents. We need a whole village to raise a child, a healthy child. We kind of know that. It makes account of the culture you come from. It makes sense. We need everyone, parents, not your kid the best possible. On the other one, this quote, for example, doesn't matter the question. The answer is community. And no matter the question, and is community, which means whatever you need, whatever challenge, calculate together, we all together, we can solve it. So now's the time that there's no it's overwhelming.
Põe todos. We're still having some technological challenges, but let's bring all the speakers together so that we can, Edgard, in the end, it was a little bit cutting, but your message was really powerful, and I loved what you just said. No matter what the question is, the answer is community. This is so powerful. I hope Philippine is also having better connections. Dear friends, thank you so much for bringing, inspiring us. Philippine, if you can, let's try to have like 2 minutes of your wisdom while we open the floor for the four of you, just to weave what you just brought to the room. Philippine, are you frozen? So let's bring all of them together, and hopefully Philippine has a chance also to share. And she's sitting in Europe, because we have 2 Brazilians in Brazil and the connection went well, but amazingly Europe is playing with us. So, dear friends, I want to ask you, what are the biggest questions you are dealing with now? Just to challenge all of you, all at once.
My big question now is, which is my big question ever, is why we don't do things together. If we have already the means, we have people, we have knowledge, we have resources, but things are not connected. And so how can we connect? And one of the things that I notice is that we have kind of two distinct words that must connect. One is the world of the solution designers, as Edgard. And the other one is the world of the ones that know how to implement and scale. A metaphor would be if I design any solution, I can be the creator of this solution, but that doesn't mean that I can scale and distribute the solution I design, because it's different worlds, the world of a solution designer and the world of the enterprises and the entrepreneurs. And it's very rare that we have someone like Edgard, which is both. So I wonder, how can we connect those two worlds, and the world of investment and the world of the solutions? And the other question is, I think the change between the change from the 19th to the 20th century was the moment of the revolt of the working classes. And David Graeber is very interesting. He says we now face the revolt of the caring classes, because caring is the word of the 21st century. 20th century was consume, and now is caring. But we have to change the way we, as people who work in caring, we value our work, we are valued, we work with these entrepreneurial groups and financial groups. So this is the questions I'm working on.
Thank you. I would like for us to leave our guest speakers now, all of them in the screen, so that we can play around with them and hopefully have Philippine is not on. So what are the questions leaders should be asking themselves?
Yeah, I want to go on top of Lala, because Mary Alice to frame it all. I thought in clash of narrative. I love the way that Mary Alice and how Lala provoked us to go for action. My question, my deeper question is like, what is the new narrative, of new story, inspire humanity to go next? See, we are a clash of narratives, and we can both create a story that bring us to destroy even more our natural resource, our connection among us, or we can create a new story that inspire us to use our power and to be connected with nature, to regenerate everything. So I have this not nice or sense that 10 humanity, if not, or even less than 5, that's it. Our natural resource, not resource. Let's reach oceans. 10% of us, but whales, will come to help us. I can see like whales come to the ocean to bring to the
Edgard is cutting a lot again, and we are not grasping.
To the beaches and help breathe more. Oh.
Yeah, it's being challenging.
It's okay.
With technology. We are not grasping what you're saying. So maybe Mary Alice could help us and see if your connection help us as well.
For me, some of the biggest questions, well, one of the biggest questions at the moment is, when are we going to realize that we live in a story and that means we can change it? So you try this one on for size, that everything is made up, that we all are living in a story, and that that story is actually leading the way towards the future. I think that's what all of us are pointing to. So could we decide to move toward each other instead of moving away? And I asked a friend of mine, I lived in Denmark with a couple, and she was a neuroaffective, or she is a neuroaffective psychologist, so she knows a lot about how people connect. And I said to her, why is it when there is a major disaster that most people, maybe not all of them, but most people are the best of themselves in that moment when the disaster happens? And why does it then spring back to normal after a while? Why can't we stay connected with each other and in that kind of loving moment? And she said, you have to realize two things. First of all, she's a psychologist, and also she's been a meditator for 30 years. She said to me, you have to realize that humans are mammals and that we are herd animals. And so when there is great plenty, we tend to spread out and say, this is mine. And when there's a challenge, we tend to put the children and the vulnerable in the middle and turn towards the challenge and face it together. She said, it's only, from my opinion, going to be when we realize the challenge is unconsciousness itself that things are going to dramatically change for the human race. So a big question for me and for any leader should be, I think, how can I be most awake in my life? And how can I help the people who are with me be most awake in their lives so that we can do the best work we possibly can together? Here, Peter Block also gives an interesting idea of the concept of the social architect, someone who builds functional and beautiful spaces for people to do their best work together. And the other concept that every leader is an invitation. It's just that there's some leaders who are an invitation to shut up and some leaders who are an invitation to speak up. So what is your invitation in the world? What's the question you could ask that would, and the stories you could tell that would provoke the most change? Philippine, are you with us? I would love to hear from you.
I am. I've been all the time. Do you hear me?
We can. We have...
Great. So 1 minute to summarize it all.
Yes.
So the bottom line for me is that we have the choice to operate from fear or from love. And we all know what love feels like. So we all know that state where we are not judging and we are taking in everybody and everything, and where we can create everything we think is needed. So in hosting spaces, I have come to the conclusion that what matters most is the quality of the space. And that is something we all have the choice to create. And we can create it from, as Marielle says, the unconscious, fearful, traumatized, painful state of mind, or from a loving state of mind. As our systems and societies are a reflection of us, we can create different systems and societies if we choose a different mindset and be conscious about it. So that is my message.
Thank you so much, Philippine. It was not planned to be that way, but I think your message closing the conversation was just perfect. It was just perfect, that coming from different places, but the answer is in community, leading from love, with the 4 lenses, and taking care of our stories. So these are the secret recipe of leadership for transformation. Thank you so much for bringing your wisdom. I wish we could have more time to explore, to expand our conversation, but it touched our hearts. And thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, everybody.